What if I told you that the very moments you wish you could erase from your life, the betrayal, the loss, the injustice, could be the exact chapters God uses to write your greatest story? Right now, it probably doesn't feel like that. Maybe you've worked tirelessly for a promotion only to watch it handed to someone else. Maybe a relationship you thought would last forever suddenly ended without explanation. Or maybe you're staring at a stack of bills you didn't create, wondering how you're going to make it to next month. And in the middle of all that, the question rises up: God, do you even see what's happening? And if you do, why aren't you doing something about it? It's an honest question, one that even the most faithful people in the Bible wrestled with. David cried out, "How long, O Lord?" Job wondered why God would let him suffer when he'd lived uprightly. Even Jesus on the cross asked, my God, why have you forsaken me?" So if you've been feeling that way, know this: you're not alone, and it doesn't make you less spiritual. It makes you human. Here's what I want you to know today: God's plan doesn't fall apart when life is unfair. In fact, He often does His deepest work in the very seasons we would label unjust or impossible. By the time we're done here, you'll not only understand how to trust Him when everything feels upside down, you'll also know how to keep making wise, God-led decisions that lead to an abundant, wealthy life in every sense: spiritually, relationally, and yes, financially. And just so you know, this isn't about plastering a fake smile on your face while your world burns down. This is about real faith. Faith with grit. Faith that can walk through the fire and still come out stronger. Oh, and in case you're wondering, no, trusting God doesn't mean you're about to live in a monastery eating soup for the rest of your life. God's plan is abundance, but sometimes the road there's anything but smooth. So let's begin with the first thing you have to grasp when life feels unfair. One of the greatest sources of frustration is the belief that we were supposed to be in control in the first place. Somewhere deep down, most of us think life is a formula. If I do good, I'll get good. If I work hard, I'll succeed. If I'm faithful, things will turn out my way. But then something happens that shatters that equation: a betrayal, a closed door, a season where nothing seems to work, and it leaves us reeling. Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." You can and should plan, work, prepare, and make wise moves. But the moment you start believing you hold the steering wheel of life entirely in your hands, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. It's a bit like thinking you can control the weather. You can choose the right clothes, check the forecast, and carry an umbrella. But if God decides it's going to rain, it's going to rain. Here's the freeing part: when you release the illusion of control, you're not left powerless. You're actually more empowered. Because you've stopped clinging to outcomes you can't dictate, and you've opened your hands for God to place something better in them. Some of you have been holding so tightly to what's fair that you're missing what's divine. You're holding a broken plan with white-knuckle grip when God's trying to hand you something beyond your imagination. And let's be honest, if God answered every prayer exactly the way and time we asked, most of us would have married our middle school crush, bought something ridiculous on impulse, and probably be living in a treehouse with terrible Wi-Fi right now. Letting go of control doesn't mean being passive. It means making decisions, taking action, and doing your part, while resting in the truth that the ultimate outcome belongs to God. That shift alone will lift a massive weight off your shoulders. The next step to trusting God when life feels unfair is to shift from your timeline to His. We live in a world that rewards speed. We have next-day delivery for our Amazon packages, instant streaming for our movies, and same-day grocery delivery at the tap of a button. We love fast. But God's timeline is rarely fast. It's perfect. And perfect is often much slower than we'd prefer. Think about Joseph in the Bible. At 17, he had dreams of leadership and influence. Then his brothers betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. If Joseph had judged God's goodness at year 2 of his prison sentence, he might have concluded, "God forgot me." Life's not fair, but God wasn't done. 13 years after that betrayal, Joseph was positioned to save an entire nation from famine. What looked like years of injustice were actually years of preparation. Psalm 27:14 says, "Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." Waiting isn't God punishing you. It's God preparing you. You know how every movie trailer ends with "coming soon"? Well, God's version is coming at exactly the moment it will change everything forever. When you start to see your life through His eternal timeline, you stop measuring God's faithfulness by how quickly you get what you want, and you start measuring it by how deeply He's shaping you for what's next. This shift changes how you respond to delays, detours, and disappointments. You stop asking, "Why is this taking so long?" and start asking, "What is God building in me during this season?" Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked truths in Scripture. Unfair seasons are training grounds. We all love the idea of promotion, breakthrough, and blessing, but those things require capacity. And capacity is built through pressure, challenge, and endurance. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." I know nobody likes the idea of "consider it pure joy" when you're in pain. It sounds like telling someone to be grateful while they're standing in the middle of a hurricane. But here's the point. Your trial isn't random. It's a workout for your soul. Resistance builds strength. Pressure develops perseverance. And difficulty teaches you to rely on God in ways that comfort never could. Instead of asking, "Why me, God?" try asking, "What are you preparing me for?" It's like a spiritual boot camp. You don't get abs by lying on the couch watching Netflix, and you don't get resilient, wise faith by having every door swing open the second you knock. Some of the most impactful leaders, thinkers, and innovators in history, both biblical and modern, were shaped in seasons that felt unfair at the time. David learned courage facing lions and bears before he faced Goliath. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before leading Israel out of Egypt. Even Jesus spent 30 years in obscurity before 3 years of public ministry. Unfair moments aren't meant to break you, they're meant to build you. And if you're in one right now, you're in training for something greater than you can see. But here's something critical. It's not enough to survive an unfair season. You need to position yourself for what's next. When life feels unfair, the temptation is to pull back, hide, and wait for things to change. But God's favor tends to meet people in motion. Ruth didn't meet Boaz by staying home and praying for provision. She went to the fields and worked faithfully, even in her grief. That's where favor found her. It's the same for you. Keep showing up at work, even if you feel overlooked. Keep serving people with excellence, even if you're underappreciated. Keep sowing generosity, even if your own bank account feels tight. Keep investing in your skills and wisdom, even if no one seems to notice. Why? Because God multiplies what you put in His hands. Think of it like investing. The market rewards consistent contributions over time. God's economy rewards faithful obedience over time. And unlike the stock market, His economy never crashes. Every seed you plant, whether it's time, money, kindness, or service, creates a future harvest. And sometimes the very season you think is holding you back is actually the place where God is positioning you for the breakthrough you've been praying for. So, don't retreat. Move forward. Be faithful. Trust that God sees every act of obedience, every moment of perseverance, and every tear you've cried in secret. Because here's the truth. The unfairness you're experiencing isn't the end of your story. It's the place where God is about to show up in a way that will make sense of what you've been through.